Thanks for joining me for this presentation, Adobe FrameMaker Essentials, Migrating from Word to DITA. I'm guessing that, like me, you have a love-hate relationship with Word. At one point, maybe in the 90s, most everybody had access to Microsoft Word or at least a compatible editor. But at some point, MS Word just started getting in its own way. In a lot of ways, Word is like the 800-pound gorilla. It's so big that it's really hard to ignore. And if you try to completely ignore it, things might get a little messy. That's where FrameMaker, structured content, and eventually, the XML content model used probably more than any other, DITA, became popular. It did things that this purple guy just couldn't handle. In this session, I'm going to show you how DITA provides an enforceable content model and allows you to manage your content using content management systems and share that content within your organization and with your stakeholders. So what is DITA? DITA is the Darwin Information Typing Architecture, and originally it was an IBM project that started in the early 2000s. But do a web search on DITA, and along with structured content, you get a luxury Japanese eyewear manufacturer and, oddly, a somewhat famous striptease artist. And no, I am not the striptease artist. I'm Matt Sullivan, and I'm a FrameMaker online course creator, author of a number of FrameMaker reference and workbooks, a trainer, and a consultant. Over the years, Adobe's assigned me a few titles, including Adobe Certified Expert, Instructor, and Certified Professional for all the apps in the TCS, and also for about a dozen other Creative Cloud and non-Creative Cloud products like Adobe Connect. At this point, it's a good idea to establish the target audience for this presentation. Any presentation on DITA might cover a huge range of topics, so it's important to be clear on what we'll be covering in this session. Basically, with this content, I'm targeting the DITA curious, as well as current FrameMaker users that may be tasked with converting existing Word content into DITA. And whether you're in the right place or not, Adobe does have a number of resources to get you more information on what you need, whether at the introductory or the advanced level. Those resources start with the Adobe Community Forums. Here's the link to the Community Forums, and note that the Technical Communication and E-Learning checkbox is selected, and that filters out most of Adobe's other 11-6 amazing products. I'm on those forums regularly, apparently since about January of 2005, and I've helped out once or twice. Moving over to the Adobe TCS YouTube page, there you'll find links to the DITA World recordings, though they're not visible in this screenshot, along with training, including this series, how-to videos, and new feature videos, including the ones that I've produced for the last handful of versions. And don't forget, along with the recordings of previous DITA World shows, there's also our next live DITA conference, DITA World 2025, happening in June of 2025. Attending live gives you a free online opportunity to meet with other DITA users around the world. With something like 5,000 or 6,000 registrants per conference for the past couple of years, it's 3 days of case studies, implementation success stories, and guidance on moving your organization into structured content and content management. Plus, you get to hear from these two guys from time to time. Now that you've all heard a little bit about me, a little bit about Adobe, and we've all bonded over our distaste for Microsoft Word, it's time to look at the agenda and get going. Okay, so much for the other stuff. Let's dive into just exactly how we get started with DITA. If you're already using DITA, or you understand the origins and the history of it, I want you to bear with me because we're going to spend about 4 minutes talking about the origins, the organization, and the drivers behind DITA. The Darwin Information Typing Architecture was created by IBM around 2001, and it became an open source standard around 2005. We describe DITA content using topics and DITAMAPs. Topic is the basic chunk of information, and there are a couple of specialized subtopics available, like concept, reference, and task. We use a DITAMAP to put that together, take these reusable chunks, and we put them together like we would perhaps in a book. and it's worth looking at those DITA subtopic types with a little bit more detail. The reusable topics are collected into one or more DITA maps, and that can allow us to use that information among many audiences or for different purposes. And the subcategories exist, each having different rules. For example, a concept explains general ideas or concepts. It often answers the what or the why questions. A task typically is going to have step-by-step instructions for a specific task. It might have subtasks as well, but it's going to answer those how questions. And a reference topic is generally going to contain detailed or technical data, and it's going to have lots of tables, lists, or specifications for someone to refer to or to look up specific information. Okay, so I probably lost you at topic, map, reference, task, concept, XML, DITA, IBM, blah, blah, blah. What better way to explain something like DITA but using a large language model and asking it to explain DITA itself as a concept topic? Well, here's the prompt I used. And you can see the result right in here. I've got a concept. These are all tags in the XML itself. And it gave me a fairly decent description of what DITA is. It stayed fairly true to what a concept topic would be. The tags are a little bit off. So there was a bit of massaging in the code itself. But if I open up FrameMaker, I move over to the code view or the XML view right here, and I paste that content in, massaging it so that I've got ULs and LIs instead of lists and items. I end up with something that is easy to read and gives me an idea of what the concept of DITA is all about. Now, this session is about taking Microsoft Word files and converting them into DITA, which is clearly not what I did here. But let's go with kind of the reverse. Let's take this content right here, and I'll show you what that might look like in Microsoft Word. Again, with a little massaging, I took the content from the DITA file, that explanation of what DITA is. I made this an actual title. I made this a subtitle. We've got a heading 1 and normal on down the list here, and some bold right in here. All right, so you're probably asking yourself, we can push this stuff around into different editors. Why should I care about DITA, and why should I not just stick with Microsoft Word? Structured content, including DITA, is going to promote a conformity with an enforced and enforceable content model. When you write, you will be writing in the manner that you are supposed to write, and you're going to be meeting the standards of both your clients and the contractors who've engaged with you to create this content. Structure separates the content from the formatting, meaning you're less of a desktop publisher and you are now a writing expert. You're focused on the content and not the display of that content on the page. Structure also enables the transfer between various editors within your organization, the transfer with a content management system, as well as stakeholders, whether those are coworkers, whether those are folks that have contracted with your organization to provide content, or whether it's your end customer. And finally, structure is going to reduce the effort needed for localization or translation. In other words, we're looking at DITA and we're going in that direction because it's going to save us and our organizations money. So let's get started. The default conversion assumes you've got Word content that uses the standard Word style sheet. I've prepped 2 Word files with these styles. One is an overview of the Paris Olympics, and the other is a reference doc containing the rules for the basketball medal competition in Paris. If I take a look at the styles, you can see that the main title is using the title paragraph format from the spreadsheet, followed by normal, and followed by heading 1. It's good to note that these items here are actually text rather than what we would think of as auto numbering from a FrameMaker point of view. Same with this document. We've got title, heading 1, and normal. We're looking good on the Microsoft Word side, so let's check out FrameMaker. I noted before that right now I'm using 17.0.4, which is my current version of FrameMaker. If you're using something other than that exact version, understand that things might look a little bit different within the user interface. Most importantly, you need to make sure that there is a structure menu item right here. When you install FrameMaker, it's set up by default to display in the structured FrameMaker mode. If you don't have the structure menu visible, go to Edit, Preferences, and under Product Interface, make sure that Structured FrameMaker is selected. I'm already in structured mode. If not, when I hit OK, I'll be prompted to restart FrameMaker, and at that point, I'll get the structure menu up here in the menu bar. I'll go ahead and hit Cancel. And under that structure menu item, in Utilities, we have a number of useful things, but specifically we've got Convert Word docx to DITA. Selecting that option, I'm prompted for 3 pieces of information. First is the input Word document. Here I've already selected the 2024 Olympic Summary Doc. If not, I'd click on Browse. Automatically, or by default, the Style to Tag Map shows up with the Style to Tag Map XML file that I need to take a standard Word style sheet and turn it into DITA. And then finally, we've got the Output DITA Files option. And I've identified a folder right here that I want to contain all of my DITA maps and all of the topics that are created from these processed Word files. I'm going to go ahead and hit Convert. And after processing, FrameMaker brings up my Microsoft Explorer window with my files available. I've backed out so that you can look at my DITA output directory and get a sense of the organization that I've got for my project. In this project, which I'll call my Convert Word to DITA project, I have a DITA conversion project files. And within that DITA conversion project files, I've got a Word input files directory and a DITA output directory. The Word input files just has these 2 right here. And here is my DITA output. So I've taken my one file, my one Olympic summary file. It's given me a DITA map for my 2024 Olympic summary. It's also given me a directory with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different topics, and it's strung them all together. So let's go ahead and open up that DITA map. And I'll just double click right here. It opens up into FrameMaker because I have my machine set to open up DITAMAP by default into FrameMaker 2022. There's the title of my DITAMAP, its location in yellow, summary of the 2024 Olympics, and then all of the 6 subsections that I had within my document. Double clicking on key events opens up the key events topic. Looking at some of the text in here shows me that the key events has been turned into a concept topic with the title of key events with a con body with a bunch of paragraphs in it. I'll open up each of the other topics. Introduction, medal standings by country, highlights of notable events, analysis by region, and conclusion. Let's take a look at processing the other file. Back to the structure menu, utilities, convert Word doc, browse, basketball rules, same style to tag map, same output DITA files directory, and I hit convert. The file processes. As before, it jumps into what actually is my DITA output directory. Last time I skipped a step where I jumped out to that location with the other folders. And you can see I've got my 2024 Olympic basketball rules DITA map. Open that up. I have these 5 topics inside of there. Clicking on teams and format, game rules, fouls and free throws, key differences, and medal games. I now have 2 DITA maps and close to a dozen topics that were created from those 2 Microsoft Word files. At this point, I can mix and match. I can put these into any order that I want, and I can further manipulate the content from these processed concept topics into a normal topic or into a task or a reference topic. Doing that simply means that I understand how to work with a DITA file, how to move, change, or add content as needed. I'll go over a little basic editing of DITA topics at the end of this session. Right now, I want to give you an idea of how you might modify the default mapping table that we use to come up with the current topics that we're working with. Recall that in the Convert Word to DITA dialog, there's a style to tag map that's defined, and this is our default map. Now, if I take a look at the location that contains the map, and I'm going to do that by using a quick shortcut inside of a Windows Explorer window to get to my roaming directory. And it's this X to DITA directory, Word to DITA directory, and there we go. So here's the file that I can open up, I can modify and resave to customize the mappings to do a number of different things. If I open up the style to tag map in something like Notepad++, which is an open source editor, then I get something that is a little bit easier to read, to configure, because it has code hinting and some other things going on. First off, notice that this file is only 167 lines long. Now, while that might seem like a lot, it groups itself into chunks so that you don't need to understand all 167 lines. You just need to find the area that you want to modify, make a quick tweak, and then run a test to see how it works. We don't have time to go through all of the testing here, but let's take a look at some of the stuff nonetheless. If I look at about line 8 to line 26, you can see that I've got my outputs defined. I've got a book map, a concept, task, and reference. So if you want to add topic to this, then you could add topic and then some other instructions there, and then make other changes down the line to make use of that topic. From 28 down to about 72, here's where you can see that the Microsoft Word style named title is going to map into a map title, and that we're going to create a book map. Likewise, I've got a heading 1. That heading 1 has details right in here, and then you can see that the topic type is going to be a concept. So if you have a specific style that should be changed or mapped into a task or a reference, then you could create a short section of lines here that accomplish that task. You can see that heading 2s are creating second level sections here. Same with heading 3. You may have noticed that the output up here is specifically to bookmap. If you want to go with the more generic DITAMAP output, then you'd have to put in a new set of lines to control the creation of the bookmap, and then modify everything else so that it fits accordingly. There's even something in here to take care of things that you don't want going to DITA. My TOC from my Microsoft Word file is not something that I plan to use. I'm going to go ahead and use FrameMaker and DITA to create that on the fly. So I have a series of styles here from about 99 to 107 that I've chosen to skip. Those things won't be processed into DITA. Keep in mind that you're going to want to change the style to tag map file name. So if you make any changes, definitely do a file save as, and I'd recommend putting it in that same directory as the default style to tag map file. Now that we've got some content inside of FrameMaker, I want to show you a couple of things, and they actually may show up in a couple of different parts of this video, but just things that might make your life a little easier as you're editing within the FrameMaker environment. You may have noticed already that I only have the toolbar up here, or I should say I only have the menu items up here. I don't have any toolbars showing. I've already hidden those because when I work with structure, I just don't find that they add a lot of value, or at least most of them don't. So when I go to the toolbars, I have access to any of these. I can put them all back, and I can even show all. That might be a little bit more than what I want. So rather than just picking and choosing among the ones that may be helpful, like the structure bar and some others, I'm just going to hide them all for now. And that's just a nice way to clear things up or clean things up, so that I'm looking at less, I've got less distractions on the screen. When I'm looking at my DITA maps, or similar to what I would have as a book file inside of a regular FrameMaker file, I've got a number of ways I can put these together. First of all, I can drag this out and I can float it as a separate palette. I drag the tab to go ahead and do that. And that gives me the option to kind of like set this up and resize it the way that I want. But I can also go and I can dock that in between these two. You can see the blue line right here. And anywhere I see that blue line, it indicates what will happen. This will stack it on top of the summary. This will add it to the summary. This will put it to the left of the summary, etc. Let's go ahead and put this above so that they stack like that. And this panel right here has been expanded. I can collapse to icons right here. And then this can come all the way down so that I'm only looking at the buttons right here. Clicking on either one of those will fly out that DITAMAP right here. I'll have full access to it. Or if I have enough room, I do like to and prefer to expand the panels right there. And then I can adjust these to get to all the buttons if I need them. Or if I don't care too much about these other buttons right here, I can bring it all the way down to wherever I want it to be. A lot of times I feel like the text inside of these book panels is a little bit small. And there are a couple of ways that you can increase this. You can take the magnification and change this magnification by selecting something within the panel and coming down here and clicking on plus. I'll do the same thing in the other. Makes it a little bit easier to see. And of course I can do the same thing in my topics, but I can also use a shortcut with my mouse. I can hold down my control key and I can do a downward roll with my scroll wheel, and then that will increase that scale right there. And of course if I go up, it's going to make it much smaller. One of the problems is if I overscale, I run the risk of blowing this thing out of the tabs right here. And so if I do that, it's easy enough to either drag that directly into this area in the toolbar right here, or I can come back to the window menu item and I can choose consolidate. So that gets that back in there. My structure view, I can do the same thing that I did with the book file. I can hit the plus. With my structure file, I may have more difficulty using my magnification over here, but you still can use your control scroll wheel to make that go up. You might get some unwanted behavior over here. You can see that this kicked up and kicked the window out for some reason out of the tab bar right there. So I'll just shove that manually back in there and I'm back in the same place that I want to be. Looks like this scale's a little bit different. Probably was just rescaled when some other things were going on there. There we go. That looks like it's probably the same for both now. And then to wrap this up, I want to take all of these tabs, all of these panels that I've got over in here, and I want to use only the ones that I expect to use on a regular basis and then store those as a workspace. I don't really expect to use the paragraph designer in a DITA authoring environment. That would be a DITA template design. I might use that. But for that reason, I'm going to close out of the paragraph designer. I do want the elements. I probably don't need the console. That's good to see when you have errors that show up right here and the ability to clear it. I don't need that right now, so I'm going to close that. My find change, I generally don't need in part of my interface. I can get to that easily enough. And the validation, the element validation, the attributes I do like to see. So these are the ones that I like to see. I like to see the document view, the structure view, the attributes, and the element definition up all at the same time. I also really like to see the elements catalog. Now with DITA, because we have so many elements available, in certain places you'll want a nice long list of that element catalog. Here inside of my book map or inside of my DITAMAP view, I don't have as many options right here. But as I select different areas, you'll see that the elements that are available will change. I like to go into settings. I like valid elements working start to finish. And I like to list my inclusions after other valid elements. Inclusions are just things like index markers, cross-reference markers, and things like that. So once I do that, then it's set up the way that I want. I want to save that workspace. And so I've already got one that I created for DITA for this presentation and this recording. However, I want to save this as, I'm going to save that workspace as DITA authoring. So specifically just the authoring portion of that, and I can hit OK. The advantage of this is now as I move stuff around, let's say all kinds of crazy things happen here. I close different things, get rid of my validation box, and things look kind of like this. I can always go back to my workspace by coming in here and then choosing to reset the currently selected workspace. So if I reset my DITA authoring workspace, I go back to that. And now I've got my attributes, my element validation. I've got my structure view, my elements. My DITAMAP is still out in here, but that's not really part of my interface. So that's not surprising right there. I will go ahead and drag that back up to where I wanted it. And it's good to know that that's just not something that's stored. The location of that DITAMAP, or that book map in this case, is not directly stored inside the workspace. That's a little bit much. I've converted a couple of my Microsoft Word documents into DITA. I've got DITA maps, which specifically are book maps, and they look a lot like a conventional book. What I'm going to do now is publish each of them to PDF. One thing to keep in mind is if you don't have any sort of document or topic open, then when you go to the File menu, your options to publish are going to be grayed out. So I'll just go ahead and open up any of these documents. So Teams and Format open, up to the File menu, and now I can get down to Publish. Publish gives me all of these different formats. One of the most popular is PDF. And so now I'm going to look at my ability to push this out to PDF quickly, and then take a look at the formatting, and then we'll go from there in another section. So we're going to go to the top here, find out that our source document is the Olympic summary. So that's going to be this one right in here. And I could choose any of my open documents, or I could just choose the current document. You know what? I'm going to switch it to this top one. I was kind of thinking of doing the basketball rules first. So I'll go ahead and choose the basketball rules DITAMAP specifically. And then I'm going to be going to PDF. But before I do, regardless of what I have chosen here, I can come over and click here and go to Edit for my options. And this is significant because I do have the options for all the different formats that I have defined in here. Sticking with PDF, I've got my general options here, or my general tab, and I'm going to start with the preset. PDF A3 is a PDF archive version 3 format. And that is, I believe, the most current of the user assistance or the Section 508 compatible formats. If you don't have PDF A3B, there is a video out on the Adobe TCS YouTube page. I'll try and link it here after the discussion for the recording. And that will give you an idea of how to get this PDF A3B if you don't have it. And I think that's in Frame 2019 and later. But in any case, I've got it right here. I've installed it. You also have things that are good for print. And for that, I like to use PDF X4. So PDF X4 or X4 2008, those are both going to be just fine. There are also these other ones that you can play around with. They have different options in the conversion itself. One thing specifically, if you are going for 508 compliant output, when you go to this PDF A job option, you're going to want to click on the tagged PDF option right here. So you do that. And then there's also this option down here for Acrobat Distiller. If you use the Acrobat Distiller option, then some of these things are not going to work as expected. It's going to take this and push it to a PostScript file, and then that PostScript file is going to get picked up by Distiller and not using the internal PDF engine that you have inside of FrameMaker. That engine is fast. It gives you options that Distiller doesn't have. So if it works for you, if there's not some reason that prevents you from using the internal engine, I would recommend going that way first so you can control everything from this window. Now notice up here we've got a tab called DITA template. This is basically a way within your job options in the publish dialog to identify what you are going to publish to. So the format that you're going to use for all of these different types in here, all these different document types have their own format for specific types of DITA files. So you want to go ahead and look at any of these, and this will give you access to importing and exporting. So if you export, then you edit, then you import, you will effectively change, in this case, the appendix template. So you can go through all these and change any of the ones that you want and be able to keep track of it. Also in DITA options, you've got a couple of options in here that we're not going to go over, but I just want to show you access to all those things. So automatically, even though I don't have any of these things here, I might want to create a table of contents. I might want to create an index, a list of figures. So I'll go ahead and leave all of these available just because they are the defaults. I'll just leave them on there and see what we get. And then I will go ahead and save and close. With that done, now I'm ready to produce the PDF. I can either double click on PDF right here or click here and then click on this button right here. It will take my current settings, which I had actually, this is from a job that I did a couple of days ago. That's okay. The settings are going to work just fine. Okay, I'll double click to produce the PDF. And I get a warning about the Teams and Format DITA file being open. That's fine. I'll go ahead and close that. Interestingly, it's reset the magnification on this while it processes. And I'll go ahead and view the output. Now recall, this is a book map inside of FrameMaker, and that book map is using these specific templates. And so you can see that you're going to want to come in and edit the templates to do things like change the company name variable, replace the graphic logo here, take all this stuff and make sure that it's all set up the way that you want it to, but it's all configurable. We'll look at our pages. That'll give us the ability to create or to look at the table of contents. Remember that TOC is one of the things that it automatically created from my DITA options. Then it goes directly into my doc. It's added numbering right in here. We mentioned that this actually wasn't numbering inside the DITA file, so that's something that you'd want to pull out. And then it goes through and takes care of all that stuff. Remember that also list of figures, list of tables, and index were all selected. So assuming that you don't have any of this information inside of your DITA files, simply deselect them to eliminate them from future PDF and then save that job options. You'll be good to go. Now at this point, I want to connect a few threads. In looking at the PDF that I created from my converted Word document, I have this numbering in here that's been effectively duplicated. Now the 4 dot space is something that was converted from the Word file. Outside these brackets, the 4 dot space here was created from or evaluated and created based on the template and the context of the element. So that's one thing, is the numbering. We're going to go in, we're going to remove the numbering. Another obvious thing is in my PDF, I've got my brackets right here. Now these brackets are displayable or visible in the PDF because they are visible in the FrameMaker file at the point that I create the PDF. So I want to change those, I want to turn those off. Now the third thing that I want to be able to do is I want to be able to create subsections. I want to see that I can also represent this information in a more granular nature. That is, I can take the topic and have the topic made up of different topics, and those can then be presented as subsections, and my templates will take care of all the numbering and everything too. So let's take those things one at a time. Back in FrameMaker, my basketball rules DITAMAP has these converted topics from Microsoft Word, and they were all numbered, but they weren't so much numbered as there was content within the topic that represented a number. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to switch all of these, because while this numbering right now is correct, if I want to use this content in a different context, then the numbering may change, or it might be a different format, like a 3.1.2, something like that. So I want to get that stuff out of there and have my content and my formatting entirely separated. So I want my context to control my formatting rather than my content kind of indicating my sectioning. I'm going to go ahead and save all my open files. And I'm doing that by holding down the Shift key as I choose the File menu. That gives me the option to save all files in DITAMAP. And you can see, even though I took out the numbering inside the topic, the labels still have that numbering. Now, even though I've modified the content of each topic and pulled that numbering, that manual numbering out of there, the numbering is still referenced, or it's visible in the DITAMAP. I'm going to fix that by opening up what we call the document view. And in there, I can manually modify these labels. Of course, I could have avoided this process by pre-processing my Word content before I did my conversion. I'll go ahead and save that. And once I'm done with my editing, I'll go ahead and close that document view. So I have my book map kind of set up the way that I want it. And just as a reminder, we've got our book map file, we've got a series of chapter files. But let's say we want to start reorganizing our content. If I take this chapter, Key Differences, and I move it to the second chapter right here, I may want to have Teams and Format and then display Key Differences from MBA Rules as a subtopic. So I would want that as a child of my chapter element. What you'll find is if you drag this file up to here, that red tells me that's not valid there, it's not valid there, it's not meta information, so no surprise that it's not valid there. And basically, I don't have a place where I can put that chapter in a way that it will be treated as a child or a subset of that Teams and Format section. One of the cool things about working with DITA in FrameMaker is I can work in this book map, which contains chapters and has all this automatically generated stuff that goes along with it. And I can also go with a more strictly compliant XML view of the information. I can have DITA maps that have topic references, and then we have topics, and we can move those things around so that we can have more granular topics. We can have these things that are very small and can be moved around within the DITA map, and makes the DITA map look more like an outline of your overall document view. Let's see what that looks like. I'll start by creating a new DITA map, which I could do from either File, New, DITA, and Map, or a whole lot easier than that, just go to my welcome screen, and on the welcome screen, click on Map. I'll go ahead and save that map, and just to keep it simple, I'll give it a descriptive name, multi-level map. I'm going to save it in with my other topics, and now I have a map with a title instead of a book map. And just to keep it easy, let's go ahead and take the multi-level DITA map, and I'll stack that on top. That way I can see the two things that I'm trying to create here. So, reminder, I'm trying to get this Key Differences from MBA Rules to be kicked in one level from the Teams and Format. First, I'll change the title. I'll open up my document view. And I'll just keep it a little bit shorter. Go over to my structure view, put in a topic reference, make sure that I show all files since my suffix is not XML, Teams and Format. Now let's say I'm not sure where I'm going to put this exactly to make it a child element of the topic graph here. So I'm just going to put in another topic reference for the key differences from the MBA rules. Go into topic graph, hit browse, topics, DITA or all files gives me the option to get the key differences. Hit OK. I'll go ahead and close my outline view. Coming over into my DITAMAP, I've now got this arrow where I can kick it right. And what we've got over here is a topic graph that's now been made a child of this topic graph. So where my book map did not allow me to put that chapter inside of a chapter, this topic graph can go inside of a topic graph. And I've still got the same advantages that I've got from before, where I can open up the individual topics and I can see that content individually. We did pull out the numbering, so now let's find out where this small example takes us when we produce a PDF. I can either choose the current document, or specifically, I can choose multi-level map. This really depends on whether I plan on doing lots of different files as PDF, or if I'm just working and massaging on one specific thing. If I'm trying to work out my publishing for this one thing, probably best to choose just that one file so that I don't make a mistake and choose a PDF or another output for just an individually selected topic. So multi-level DITAMAP, same settings I used before, same area, same output intent or folder, and I'm going to go ahead and double click on PDF. It warns me that I've got these topics open. I'm going to go ahead and close that. That's fine. And what you'll see is the PDF processes. You'll see that we are creating from this DITAMAP a temporary book map to use in printing, and that allows us access to all of our templates. The PDF's then going to process. Then it's going to wrap up that book map, that temp file that gives us all of our TOC and our other generated files. It's just going to push that away. So we're still using that same book map and the chapters to publish, but we're not having to constrain with different templates for the DITAMAP versus the book map output. And it just simplifies the whole workflow because we're always basically going through one workflow. All right, here we go. 2024 Olympic basketball. So it's got my new title from the DITAMAP. I've got teams and formats, and notice that already key differences from MBA rules is now a second line within the teams and format chapter 1. So I'm going to go down to 1, teams and format. It's been numbered automatically per my specs within my template. And then we've got the 1.1, the key differences from the NBA rules. Keep in mind, I still do have my brackets, or I have my boundaries on right now. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that PDF file. When you're testing, closing out the PDF as soon as you know that you need to reproduce it is a really good idea. That's going to keep you from bouncing back and forth from Acrobat to FrameMaker in order to close and then allow the file to process. Back in Frame, just go ahead and open up one of your topics. Look at the brackets. Shut them down. Confirm by going to the other file. They're already shut off because that's a FrameMaker wide setting. You don't do that per document. Shift key, File, Save all open files. Back over to the PDF. Close any files that are referenced. Go to the temp book. PDF is processed. Go ahead and view output. Olympic basketball. There's my table of contents. My first page, teams and format. And 1.1 key differences from the NBA rules. So at this point, I have the map. I've got that ability to organize. I've got the ability to granularize the topics to make those topics much shorter or more granular. And that encourages reuse across all of my other documents and across my enterprise. And then I still get the advantages of producing that PDF in a way that's comfortable for me. What's left now is to format the individual templates for my organization. To access and change the templates that are used for outputting DITA to PDF, we need to go into the Publish panel. Within the Publish panel, we're going to go down to Settings, Edit. Within PDF, choose DITA Template. And here you have access to all the templates that you could use for different sort of DITA component output. I'm going to start with the book title. And I'm going to export that. I keep a separate directory of DITA templates for each project that I'm going to produce from DITA. I do this so that later I can actually import all of the templates for a DITA project at one time. I'll show you how to do that after we finish this, this go around here. To start, I'm going to leave the book title template name alone, and I'm going to go ahead and save that as is. The reason I'm doing that is I want to be able to go back to that file if I need to. I want to grab the original from that file if there's something that I inadvertently delete or overwrite in my editing process. So I'm going to open up that template file, and then I'll do a save as. And I'll now change this to describe what my DITA project is. Now I've got a couple of changes I want to make on the body pages. Specifically, I want to edit this chapter title name variable, changing the definition. And also change the details in this text block. There are also a couple of things that I'll need to go to the master pages so that I can finish it off. I'll change the company name variable. I'll get rid of these two frames right here. I'll also pull out the FrameMaker mnemonic or product logo, and instead I'm going to replace it with a stock image. At this point, it's important to recognize that I'll want to copy into document rather than importing by reference. This is a high-quality stock image, so I've set the custom DPI up to 2400 pixels per inch. You can see that the image itself is 7200 by 4000 pixels, roughly. Now I've chosen to copy into document rather than importing by reference, and rather than using the insert image option, which I usually like, because this file needs to be imported into the FrameMaker PDF process. And if I import by reference, then the location of the original imported file is going to remain static, but the location of the FrameMaker file will be in another directory. And it really doesn't make a difference in the long run whether it's imported by reference or copied into document, since the bottom line is the PDF will contain the same size image using both workflows. All right, I'm going to save my changes, then go back to the Publish panel, choose Edit, DITA Template, Book Title, and this time do an import. Bringing in the Olympic basketball template, I'll go ahead and save and close my settings. Back to the Publish panel, confirm that I've got the right document and that I've got the right settings and I know where they're going, and double click on PDF. The temp book gets created, the file gets processed, and now I can view output. There we go. We've got the variable change. We've got the title that's changed from a variable to text. All of the content here and the image has now been included. The table of contents has its own template, as do the topics, so you can see different information here in a different look. And then I'm going to circle around one more time because I do have this list of figures and some other documents 9, 10, and 11 basically. So I've got my list of figures, tables, and index that are not being used in this document. Close out of the PDF, back over in FrameMaker, edit my settings, go to DITA options. Specifically, I'm going to deselect the list of figures, the list of tables, and the index. Save and close. Reprocess my PDF. Look at the temp files go through, and view the output. Same cover page, table of contents, page 1, 2, 3, 4, or sections 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Conclusion, and that's the end of my file. So I've gotten rid of all of those files that I didn't have a need for within this project, and I can still go in and work on the TOC template and the topic template and be ready to go. At the beginning of this section, I mentioned that I was putting all of my templates into one directory and that we were going to loop back around. Coming back into FrameMaker, going into the Publish settings and the DITA template options, I want to point out that at the very bottom you have an option to import from folder. So if you've made changes to 5 templates specific to your project, you can save those all in one directory, and then you have the ability to import from all of those files in one step instead of importing these things individually. Either way, it's a good idea to take a separate settings file for each one of your projects so that you've got an entirely different set of published settings and DITA templates that apply to each of your DITA publishing projects. This gives you a number of ways to handle this issue, so just take a few moments to think through how you're going to handle your individual projects before you get into the publishing process. And with that, we come to the end of our crash course on how to get started with DITA and FrameMaker when you've got Microsoft Word content as your source files. And here's a list of what we covered. We started with an explanation of what DITA is and why you would want to use it. And then we looked at the default Word conversion supplied to you with the default install of FrameMaker. We looked at how you can go under the hood to customize that transformation from Word using an XML file. And then took a look at some common issues that you'll run into as you convert those files. For those just getting started with FrameMaker, I showed you a few things that can make your workspace a little bit easier to work with. And then we looked at the default process of using the Publish panel to take our DITA content and publish to PDF. After that, I gave you a brief look at the difference between a standard DITAMAP and a DITA bookmap. And we followed that up with a look at how you can customize the PDF templates supplied to you in the Publish panel. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and that you got a lot out of it. I certainly did enjoy putting it together for you. If you need more information about FrameMaker, structured or unstructured, I have reference books, structured authoring workbooks. I've got FrameMaker training, both online and a live upcoming 2-day DITA class. And I've also got options for online meeting, both free consults and quick fixes that you might need to get done. For details on all of that, visit learn.techcomtools.com. For those attending the live version of this information, I'm happy to stick around for a few minutes and answer any questions that you've got. If you're watching a recording of this presentation, please do make a comment down below. I'll try and check it and get back to you as soon as I can. And finally, here's some of the best ways to get in touch with me. Thanks for watching.